Continuing our series of lectures on argumentation for AP English Language Composition, this is lecture 5, writing the essay. Last time we talked about writing the introduction. Today we'll talk about writing the body. But instead of actually talking about how to write the body, we're going to talk about what the body entails. All the things that go into making a good body paragraph. Here we go. When writing argument bodies, you want to keep in mind the following things. They demand creativity and a range of examples. This is how to be successful in the composition of the argument essay. You must be creative, and it is the most important part of the essay. Good examples, because examples essentially make your evidence. And without evidence, an argument doesn't exist. It doesn't prove anything. And if it doesn't prove anything, it has no value. It has no impact. So the example, the evidence that you choose, should have depth and breadth. Whenever your example makes a comparison between the rhetoric that you're presenting or the claim that you're making to something else, comparing A to B, or A is so because B is like it, all you're accomplishing is creating a superficial connection. And your reader feels like you don't fully understand the significance of that connection. That's a problem. So your argument, your example has to have depth to it. So you cannot just summarize the example. For instance, humorists have an important role in society. That's my claim. My example, political cartoonists, for example, like Thomas Nast, he was very influential. He did a lot of things with his cartoons. Boom. No, that's not a good example. That's a summary of Nast and what he did. I mean, maybe I have a really good, a valid point there. That is true, but I didn't explain it. And if I can't explain it, you don't convince me. And if you don't convince me, it ain't good. Simple as that. So, what exactly are examples? What are we talking about? We're talking about historical, political, social, cultural, psychological, or modern examples. Can I use art? Yes. Can I use economics if I understand it? Sure, I suppose you can. Can I use some obscure piece of information that I know? Yeah, there are many things that you can use as examples. They can be anecdotal, they can be personal, historical, they can be analogies that you fabricate, meaning that you create theoretical examples. You can create anything as long as you are able to use that thing to prove the argument. It counts as a valid point of evidence because the example gives the argument shape. Without the example, the essay is unsubstantiated, and therefore your argument falls apart. So here are some essential points, right? Elements of strong examples. The weight of the example is directly related to the weight of the argument. The stronger the example seems, the stronger your argument seems. So I'm going to make a claim and I'm going to try to prove it by quoting a movie. Well, I mean, it isn't bad, but the movie does not have the gravitas that, let's say, a book may have, or a historical moment that is like the War of Independence. I don't know. Something like that. The point is that the weight of your example determines the ethos of your argument, the strength of your argument in this case. So, if, for instance, you don't have a really big example that proves the point, let's say your argument is that ownership is that intangible ownership is as valuable as material ownership, right? How do I prove that? What kind of example can I use? If you don't have one handy example to prove, maybe something from Plato, something from Socrates that you might have read somewhere, right? If you don't have that, then maybe a sub-related series of examples, they might carry the weight of the claim that you made. So, another point is the relevance of the connection between the example and the claim will impact the overall strength of the argument. What does that mean? That means that if your evidence is not directly related to the claim that you made, it might lose strength. So when the example is not directly related to the claim, it forces you to explain the connection by building a bridge between them. And then your argument is ultimately weakened because of the logical distance that your reader has to travel in order to agree with you, right? Your reader, you want to prove to your reader that disobedience is good, that leads to social progress. And then you say that um, disobeying your parents can lead to developing your own character. Well, that's not immediately related. Now you'd have to explain what kind of disobedience and in what way you disobey your parents and how that such a minor moment like disobeying your parents relates to social progress. You becoming a better person may not necessarily lead to social progress. So you have to have an example that is somewhat in the neighborhood of the claim that you made. All right. If the example doesn't fit, don't try to make it fit. However good the example is, if it doesn't match the point you're making or the claim you made, don't try to make it work. Even if, well, but I only know this example and it's really good. It may be good, but if it doesn't relate to what you're trying to prove, then it doesn't prove what you're trying to prove. All right, the more specific the example, the stronger the argument becomes. Meaning, if you're going to say that Thomas Nast was a cartoonist and his political cartoons somehow changed the landscape of politics in America in the 1800s, if that's the argument you're going to make, show me one. Tell me the one that he made where this cartoon was like that and it had this reaction in the public, right? Like, be specific. Let me see it. Now, if your example is wrong, then your claim will seem wrong and your argument will lose validity, right? Sometimes your claim is right, but the example that you use to prove that claim is not really right. So then, if your reader says, oh, you got the example wrong, then your claim will seem weaker in comparison, or by association, I should say, right? It doesn't invalidate the claim, but it hurts your argument. So you got to be careful that you don't get the example wrong. All right. Here's something I want to show you. So I think this is a pretty good example. Here's a one that is bad, right? We'll call it bad example. And here's a better example. And all I did was add this portion right in the middle. Okay, so let's read the first one. The actions of radical individuals who oppose the existing government have also proven to be influential in the progression of society. Disobedience leads to progress, basically. Figures such as Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Mahatma Gandhi have all proven to have the ability to change society for the better by rebelling and organizing social movements. This is true. They've done this. I don't disagree, but you made a claim and then you made another claim. And claims don't substantiate each other as well as evidence substantiates claims. These individuals represent the disobedient individuals who have made great changes in society for the rest of civilization. This sentence summarizes the previous one. It doesn't do anything. They are rebels who see an issue in society or government and they recognize the need to change and progress. Again, repetition. By striving for change and progress, these individuals have inspired movements of civil disobedience that inspire change in society and make the world a better place. It doesn't work. The example is there. They tried, right? King, X, Gandhi. Okay, but they don't really go into it, and that's a problem. Now, look at this, just a minor addition. I don't think that this is good necessarily, but it is better. So again, the actions of radical individuals opposing the existence of government have proven to be influential. Okay, figures like the following. In the year 1963, Martin Luther King led, now in this example, by the way, we only have King and Gandhi, right? I took out one of the other ones just to not make it too heavy. In the year 1963, Martin Luther King led a march of over 250,000 people in hopes of gaining freedom and rights. In 1893, Gandhi refused to comply with the racial rules of Indian government and forced thereby starting his life of civil disobedience toward the oppressive forces in the world, particularly the Indian government. By striving for change, everything else is the same. But this addition of a specific moment, who, where, what happened, right? Little additions like that, they make the example better. Why do they make the example better? Because it's more specific and I understand it more. And now I can agree with you. The reader doesn't want to agree with you because you're right. The reader wants to agree with you because you showed him the truth. You pointed at truth and you said, look, evidence, right? Don't you conclude the same thing I concluded? Yes, that's what the reader wants. So here are some mistakes that you're likely to make, or I hope you don't make, while writing an example, the evidence for the body paragraph. Okay. Saying nothing. This is when you have a series of claims that don't accomplish much except repeat the same idea. Plato's allegory of the cave is one of time's greatest philosophical ideas. Okay. That's an empty sentence, by the way. Plato makes reality seem unlike reality with his allegory of the cave. Okay. Challenging its reality itself is no easy task. Many will shoot down this idea. Wow, that's great. Plato has a very viable view on how reality could be fake. Okay. One of the greatest philosophers, nothing is actually advanced. Arguments must advance ideas, and this does nothing. It's just a series of claims that are unrelated. And by the way, this is real. I didn't write this. Somebody wrote this in one of my classes. Okay. Here's another mistake, right? Mistaking claims for examples. Not a series of claims necessarily, right? Because that's what this is whenever you think that you're writing an example, but in fact, you're just making another claim. Truman from the movie The Truman Show represents those in bondage and slavery. Okay, you have a claim, not proven. Truman was obviously a slave. He was used for entertainment purposes. Being used for entertainment purposes makes you a slave? Okay. Truman was held against his will. Show me. Where? When? How? I don't see it. He owned nothing. He owned some things, and most of your viewers did not care about him. They did certainly care. Explain that. You made a mistake, right? Back it up. The character Truman was an unwilling and unknowing slave. Um, Okay, I mean, I don't disagree with you, but you don't really show me, right? You're making claims about examples instead of demonstrating the example, right? So show me, then tell me, right? You know the old adage, show, don't tell, show, don't tell. No, no, show me and tell me. I want both. I want you to show me. I want you to explain what I saw. That's the combination. You have to focus the writing on creating compelling and rich examples that then are explained so that I can get to the same conclusion that you arrived at. So here is a good example that we're going to be working with, the one about humorists playing a vital role in society. It says here that in the 1800s, Thomas Nast created many political cartoons portraying issues in American society. These cartoons have led to lasting impact as they depict evidence and issues in a satirical light to the public as well as showing the need for reforms. His work was also a major contributor to the fall of Boss Tweed. Okay, now we're getting to the specific of the example, right? In the mid 19th century, political machines ran the political agenda. One of the most corrupt ones was Boss Tweed. Due to Nas cartoons, the public became aware of the corruption of these politicians that eventually led to the shutdown of many political machines, including Tammany Hall. Without the satirical cartoons that Nas made, Tweed would have had power in New York's political sphere for a longer time. Okay, so how is it that this works, or why is it that this works? I mean, the specificity of how the cartoon took down Boss Tweed is what makes it work. What would make it highly effective? Give me one cartoon, right? I don't know any. Show me one. If you can do that the day of the exam, if you have that kind of stuff ready, that would make your example so much better, right? Here is an example of one that doesn't really work, right? At a time where anything can be taken in a negative light, humorists serve as informers of current events. I agree with you. On television, such as The Daily Show and Last Week Tonight, embody this idea of serious news given to the public by humorists. I agree. On these shows, the humorists can make fun of political scandals and questionable acts. This is a powerful ability in today's world as it allows the public to be aware of the issues not usually discussed. I agree, but you got to show me. Without these people in our society, we lose our voice to reason. I mean, I agree with all the claims being made here, but why is it below adequate? You don't show me an example. Daily Show, when, where, how, who, what exactly is the context? Tell me. Last week tonight, show me, right? You need that. So here's one that is, again, below adequate. Now, this one, the problem here is that it is basically a summary of the argument. And this is the big problem. The big problem is that you have body paragraphs that become summaries of arguments instead of actual arguments. So we're going to skip this one and we're going to talk about writing the body paragraph. And we'll do that next time, actually working on the beginning, the middle, and the end of the writing the body. That's it. We're done.